Cool. Hey, everybody. So I just have like a little PowerPoint. The PowerPoint's mainly to keep me on track because I will go every which way when I'm talking. But to start out a little about me, background is not tech. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and then I got out in 2019. I went to PDX Code Guild, the full stack boot camp, and graduated in 2020, early 2020. And then I followed on and took the advanced course with the one with React and did that in 2020 as well. And then I was working for the Code Guild as a TA and study hall TA as well for about a greater part of a year. And in that time, I was still searching for a full-time job, something where I could really branch out, use the skills that I learned. And I landed on Tista Science and Tech. My company is out of Maryland. I reside in Portland. So it's kind of that time of work. And yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit when we go through here. But just up front, don't limit yourself. That's a huge tip right there. But I will go through this PowerPoint at the end. I'll leave some time for questions. Shoot any questions to me, add me on LinkedIn, or I'll give you guys my email at the end of this as well. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Cool. So these are some key points I'm going to go over during this talk. If anytime you have questions, go ahead and shout them out and we'll talk about them. I'd rather talk about them right up front. That way we don't forget it at the end. So a couple things we're going to go over are resume cover letters. I'm not going to tell you about resume cover letters. June does plenty of that, and she can help you with all of that. But I'll tell you what kind of helped me and a couple little key things to know. I'm going to talk about finding a job, interviews, and then personal schedule. Personal schedule is a big one. I left that towards the end, but that's a kind of a fun topic. So resume cover letters. Some things that you want to do when you're looking for a job is having a resume template. Finding a good template and sticking to that template is something that helped me a lot. And it's just something that makes you stand out. If you're able to have a good resume and a well laid out resume, that is going to get you pretty far, because if you have a cluttered resume or something that they don't want to look at, they're not going to look at it. They spend maybe 5 minutes on your resume and you need to paint a picture in their mind, and that's as fast as it is. So some good things to use are Google templates. Mine is a Google Doc template, and I can show you guys at the end. And then I also put a link here for Canva. I'll go through Canva at the end of this slide. Canva is a good resource to use for quick resume templates. You can even type in software developer resumes, and it'll bring up software developer resume templates. So you can see what people are out there using. I use a Canva one on my LinkedIn because they're colorful and add a little bit of excitement to it. But I don't use that for the one I submit through PDF. So looking at resume styles, so you kind of want to know what the 4 main resume styles are: chronological, functional, combination, and targeted. You're not going to ever get asked that, but you want to know for your own help, what are all of they? So like chronological, it's looking at your work history listed in chronological order. And if you don't have a big background in tech, then you might not want to use this one. Functional is all skill-based. So everyone here is learning skills or has learned skills, and that should be the forefront of your resume. That is what we want to portray to people. We want to say, hey, I know all these things. You should invest in me. Combination, if you have a unique background, for me, I found this was good for a military background or working with people. That's another really good thing. If you have a little bit of people person ways behind you, then a combination is really good because you can talk, you can relate to people, and then you can also say, hey, here are my skills. This is why you should go ahead and invest invest in me. And lastly, targeted. Targeted can be tricky. Targeted is more pointing your resume at a specific job and a specific task within that job. As for a software developer, data engineer, anything like that, you're going to do everything. And you don't want to rabbit hole yourself. You don't want to get down that one path and be stuck in it. So targeted is not necessarily the best one when you're first starting out looking for your first tech job, because you might go down a path and then think later on, I wish I really didn't go down this. I want to do something else. And so it's harder to pull out of that situation. So for intro into tech, I would say like functional and combination are probably your best two. And I will show you mine at the end. So cover letter templates, this one will save you so much time. If you have a cover letter template, you will be able to quickly get cover letters out and make sure that they are written the way that you want to write them. You can get it so it can be one little block that you have to change every single time, or have little brackets where you want to change out the words. And I'll show you mine so you can see what I did. But at times I was putting out, I don't know, maybe like 10 to 15 resumes a day. Sometimes I would put out a ton of them. And in order to do that, you don't want to write that every single time. A lot of the jobs that you're applying to are going to be the same. So just being able to switch over and say, hey, this one's going to this company, this one's going to this company, it'll help you out a lot with your time. So I'm just gonna see if this goes. I might go over here. Can everybody see that? If not,
No, I think it's on your other screen.
I switched over and I'm a Teams guru now, and I forgot what Zoom is. I think this will work. Okay, can everybody see that one? Cool. So this is Canva, and you can see in here, all I did in Canva was type software developer resumes, and it brings up a bunch of templates that you can use. And you can just take one of these templates and use it. I like these because they're colorful. I think I actually used this one. And you can change them out and really structure. So if you click on it, you can just say, use this template. It'll download it as, I believe, a PDF, but a writable PDF. So you can actually just go ahead and change everything out on it. And this is really good for LinkedIn. I'll show you mine at LinkedIn at the end, but LinkedIn isn't a place you want to be like plain. You want to, you want to really showcase yourself. I'm pretty plain, so it's hard for me to showcase myself. So this was a little bit of excitement. So that's a good website. You can also use, I think there's like Resume Builder, but some of those you have to pay for. Canva is free, and you can just go ahead and use it. I'm going to switch into cover letters. So this is mine. Let me try to make this bigger. This is the one I use. And I wrote this a while ago, probably a little over a year ago. And it's something that I just kind of switch out. So you can see at the top here, I just say, dear company. You don't want to pinpoint yourself and say, dear a specific person, because that person's never going to actually look at it. It's going to be a company. It's going to be someone in probably talent acquisition or maybe HR. HR might not even touch it for a while. But you want to say like, hey, company, and then you want to say why you're writing them and put right here, I have a job posting title. So you just want to say, I'm seeking a job, your job opening of software developer, junior software developer, anything like that. You want to put that in there and then say why you're seeking it. So that's my follow on here. My second block is all about me. And I would just want to say, I want to join your company because, and then what I offer to you. Now, this is going to be unique to everybody. Some people might find that their JavaScript skills are better, their Python skills are better. Don't short sell yourself. You want to upsell yourself. Everything you do, you want to make yourself look as good as you can. And if you don't know something, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Moving further down my template that I just have in here, again, a standard thing that I wrote, and then a job posting title. Further down, I explain about my past. And then I just say, if you're looking for a grounded software developer, so just summarize it and then say, I look forward to hearing back from you. If you don't say, I look forward to, or please reach out to me, they're kind of not going to be as inclined to reach back out to you. And you want to have your information right after that because you don't want them to have to read your cover letter and then go back to your resume. That's two places at once. So you don't want to have that. All right, let's see if I can get out of this. All right, so finding a job. I see the chat. People are talking in the chat. I'll answer those if someone can look at those in the meantime. I'll look at them after and get back to those questions. But finding a job. So job search sites, the main ones I use are LinkedIn, Indeed, and Glassdoor. I didn't really find a need for any of the other ones. If you're a vet, you can use like clearance jobs. That one's pretty active. And what is it? I think it's Find Vet or Vet, something Vet. Or no, USA Jobs. It's like a main one. USA Jobs, a lot of them, they don't actually get back to you. Clearance jobs, they are pretty active on there. I get messages constantly on clearance jobs. You just have to make sure your site's up to date. The way they have in clearance jobs, they have your resume is really weird. Just take your time and structure it yourself. Don't let the computer structure it because it won't work. So really just take your time on there. For LinkedIn, I feel like it's pretty active, but you're not going to really know what is truly active until you go to the LinkedIn, until you go to those companies' LinkedIns. It can be targeted in the LinkedIn search. So it will show like, even though you do like a filter, it will still show targeted. So if you're looking for specific company information, you want to go to those actual LinkedIns of those companies. They'll have better data, and then you will just go to their site ultimately and apply on their site. Indeed is pretty active, pretty updated. It's way more updated than Glassdoor, but if you bounce the two off of each other, it's like you find a norm, like a baseline. Because some of them will post a lot and then they'll stop for like a week, and the Glassdoor will post a lot and then stop for like a week. So you want to bounce them back and forth. And I would often do those pretty daily to see what was the same. And all the job postings will be the same on those, like the titles. So some things you want to look for is to target your search. What do you want to do is really a big thing. I heard Johannes on the intro say that she was targeting the like a solutions architect or a solutions analyst, something like that. All these titles, they are big titles that cover a lot of things. However, if you're looking for a software developer and a software engineer, those are like the same thing. If you really think about it, software engineer is really going to be going more back end, and software developer, though a lot of those job postings are going to be more front end. That was what I found a lot of the time. You will find that software developer and software engineers are very generic though. If you're looking to do Python, Django, Java, anything of that nature, you want to actually search for those search terms. Because software developer, you're going to get C, you're going to get everything. And it's going to be very wide range. If you're applying in Portland, you're going to see PHP is huge. You're going to see .NET. You're going to see C++. Those are massive in Portland. You can look at data. Anything data engineer, data architect, data scientist, anything like that. They're all generally the same. And I didn't think I would end up in the data field, but I do everything. And data does not say I only work on data. You can still work on front end, you can still work on back end, you are still going to write code every single day. Data just means that you are more of finding, you're like a scientist, you're trying to figure something out with your code. So if you like puzzles, data is a great way to go. Network, I'm not talking about like networking like with people, but like network, building what Linux systems or working in like architecture. If you want to go down that way, you want to search networking. Location, I touched on this at the very beginning, but how do you work best? I've heard here that so far just in this talk, I've heard that one person likes to work remote. I love remote. In person, I don't find myself in person ever because working remote is, you can do so much more with way more time. And and that doesn't mean you have to work more because you're in your office all the time, meaning your home. You can really structure your work time around what you want to do. I work for an East Coast company, so I work East Coast hours. So I'm off at 2 every day. So it's really nice where you can kind of structure your day and make it so that your work-life balance is a lot better. And if you're working from home, it makes your options wide. They're huge. Because if you're not, you're working in Portland or you're working wherever you're stationed at, wherever your home base is. If you're working remote, you can go anywhere. And that makes your job search really, really wide. Networking, I'm not going to touch on this much, but networking is one that kind of helped me. Portland's a big networking place. So if you really want to get in with a specific company, you do need a network. Some meetups that I found are good. Obviously the Monday Night Python. I think Pete's there every day. I'm not too sure, but I think that's who's there. Portland Junior Developers, they're very, very, very active. If you want to see what junior developers are doing in Portland, that's a Slack channel. They have a Slack channel. It's called Portland Junior Developers, and they do meetups very often. I think it's monthly, if not bi-weekly. So they do it pretty often. For me, another one I follow is Portland React JS. So that's another Portland group, and they do everything React. You can learn stuff, you can do meetups with them, you can ask questions, you can do everything. Very, very smart group over there. All right, so moving into interviews. Interviews are always the hard part. And there's a bunch of different types of interviews that I've found. Asking for informational interviews in Portland is huge. If you can talk to somebody that's not an actual interview, but it's somebody in the company that knows a thing or two, they can tell you what you need to say and where you need to go and what you're going to actually be doing. Without informational interviews, I probably wouldn't know like a lot of the things that happen internally with companies, because you don't have options to ask those questions inside interviews. Even if it's just a behavioral interview, you're not going to have time to ask as many questions like, who should I reach out to? What would I actually be doing? What programs would I actually be working in? You don't have the time to ask us. So asking for informational interviews, they seem pointless, but it makes it look like and seem like you are very interested in that company. So they can refer you and get your foot in the door a little bit easier. So there's a bunch of different rounds. And if you have been doing this, you already know there's a ton of rounds in tech for getting an interview and job. So your first one, I'm just going to touch on these and kind of let you know my experiences with them. But your first one is always going to be either a Zoom call or a phone call with the recruiter and or project manager, or that can be 2 different rounds right there. So it's really up to the company. I've done, when I went through all rounds with a couple companies here in Portland, it was like 5 rounds because they split these. And it was just a bunch of them. But what I found in those ones is be yourself and talk less in tech. Most of the recruiters and project managers, they don't know tech. They're not going to be asking tech questions. They want to know who you are as a person and what soft skills you bring. Do you know something like Jira? Do you know OneNote? Do you know things that'll help you be successful in the workplace? Or are you strictly tech? Because if you're just tech, you can only talk to tech people and it's not going to help. So really be you in those. And then once you get to that tech round, that's your time to shine. In the tech round, you can talk all the tech that you want. It's going to be a bunch of people that only like tech, and they're going to ask you a ton of questions. Or you might get the awkward interview of, I'm not going to ask you any questions and you're going to tell me everything. Those are super awkward. Just be comfortable. That's my experience in there. Make your home office or wherever you're going, make it as comfortable as you can. If you're like dressed to the nines, you're probably not going to be as comfortable as you can. Dress in something you're comfortable in. Stand up, look at the camera. That's a huge one. So like looking in the camera, you probably capture me looking left. I have another screen that I'm looking at. But in interviews, you want to make sure everything's like focused directly on your camera, and that will help you be engaged with those. And I heard one person say that they might not answer the question correctly on tech interviews. You don't need to answer it correctly. You just need to know what you're talking about and be confident in what you're talking about. I went through a lot of interviews with tech rounds. I did not know every single thing. There's no way you can know everything because you're only limited, like your brain's only so big, you can't hold it all. And in tech, everybody uses this cool thing called Google. And if they're a senior, junior, it doesn't really matter. Everybody uses it. Not everybody knows everything. Just be confident in what you're doing, and that will get you a really far. And after your tech rounds, you have your behavior. So they're going to test your skills and they're going to test how you are as a person. The behaviors are super short. It's usually with a bunch of people, and they're just going to throw a million questions at you. Just be as comfortable as you can, answer them honestly. And I feel like that's the best way to show off who you are. The behavior interviews, they're kind of the ones that they just go through like a script, and they just want to know if you can answer them and see if you fit the values of the company. And that's what I feel like. All right. Schedule. I put schedule at the end. So this is our last topic before I want you guys to ask questions, as many questions as you can. Schedule though is kind of a fun one, but it's also a very stressful one. Schedule. This is your full-time job. When you're looking for a job, think of it as a full-time job. If you're in a full-time job, you're going to be wanting to work constantly. Well, you don't always want to work constantly, but you're going to want to improve yourself constantly, and improving yourself in this is searching for a job. So think of it as a full-time job, and in a full-time job, you typically go in, maybe have lunch, and then do something after lunch. So that's what I'm talking about, of thinking about it like a full-time job. You want to stay organized. So I don't know if June talks about a lot about like organization or structuring your day. But with so many resumes going out, you really want to stay organized. So keeping folders inside Google is like a good way for you to stay organized. Every time you send a resume and you get a response back, put it in a specific folder so you're not searching around later. I have like even denials. You want to keep those because if you apply for a company later, that'll help you tailor that cover letter to something that they actually want. And with that, you can follow up with people a lot easier because you're able to put those in a specific area, come back to them, and they'll actually see that you're trying. A lot of people just send out a lot of resumes and don't actually, there's nothing behind the resume. You want a little bit of personality behind your resume. So you want to talk to them. And then one big thing, and I know if you graduate from Merit's class, he touches on this as well, but making a schedule for yourself that works for yourself after you graduate is really big. So if you like Pete likes coding all the time, and that's what Pete does. He codes. And I don't code in the morning. I hate coding in the morning. So one thing I like to do in the morning is like search for jobs, or even in my work day, I catch up on reading emails, documentation, stuff like that before I actually start doing any coding, because I gotta let my brain warm up. It doesn't really work in the morning, and so that's what works for me. So when I was searching for a job, I would apply to jobs, do as much paperwork as I could until about noon, and then after noon is when I would code. And I wouldn't code all day. I would code for 4-ish hours, maybe. And then when you're done with that, take a break. Take time for yourself, because on the bottom, I have avoid burnout. If you're always applying, always coding, always doing all this, you're gonna burn out. And then something that you did enjoy isn't gonna be enjoyable anymore, and you're not gonna want to pursue it. So keeping a schedule, making sure that you can actually commit yourself to those timelines, that's gonna help you quite a bit in your job search. And with that, that is the end of my slide here. I wanted to leave about 30 minutes because I want you guys to ask as many questions as you can, or as many as you can think of, because job searches they're hard. Searching for a job is not an easy task. And I've gone through it. I've done plenty of resumes, interviews. So if you guys have any questions, please ask them. Just like a little insight of what I do daily as a data engineer. My title is junior data engineer. I touch data all day, like pretty big data. And I use code for 90% of my work. So I'll take big data from Jira, which is a project management site. And then I build dashboards based on Jira data and a lot of external sources. So basically I take about 5 different sources and put them into one dashboard, and then distribute those to our teams. And that's a way for project managers to track team progress and budget. And I do that with Power BI as a big platform that I use. It's a data analytics tool. You might have heard of Tableau, or well, Tableau is like the main one everybody uses, but we use Power BI, and it's just a Microsoft tool. If you get in a company with Microsoft tools, you're going to use Power BI for all data analytics because it comes with the suite. And although it costs money, it's cheaper than Tableau would be, and it takes less integration. From there, I use that. You have to know DAX, which is kind of useful in every way, because if you know DAX, you can get really good at Excel too. Excel coding language and DAX are like the same thing. And then for automation, I used to do Python scripts, Selenium scripts, but now with how slow Python is, it's kind of going away. We don't use much Python anymore. We use a lot of JavaScript for keeping everything on the node side. So I use write JavaScript code in testing suites, so we can centralize all data there. And it's like Selenium. If any of you guys have worked with Selenium, but it cuts out a lot of the middle stuff that Selenium has to do. Like, you don't have to run a web browser to use it. You can actually just run everything under the hood, and then it saves down your time complexity. So I write a lot. I use Python every once in a while if I break down big data, but I use a lot of JavaScript for even the engineering side of it. So you can use JavaScript for absolutely everything. That's why I like that the Code Guild teaches it, because that's kind of where everybody's going. That and a lot of other technologies that are coming along. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. What questions are there out there? Oh, I said I would show you guys my LinkedIn. If you guys want, I can show you my LinkedIn. June, I think, shows it off quite a bit, so a lot of you probably already know. Is there any questions?
I was just going to ask, how could you talk a little bit about how taking the advanced course kind of broadened, or, did you find that there were jobs that you could apply for because you had taken the advanced course? Or are you, like the job that you had, could you have gotten it if you hadn't taken the advanced course? Or just talk a little bit in that general area.
Yeah. So I feel like the advanced course is definitely a good avenue to go if you can afford it. I understand it's another boot camp. It costs money. Do you need the advanced course to get every job? No. You guys learn plenty in the first boot camp to be successful in anything you do. Being a junior developer, they're not always going to ask you super advanced questions. Like in the advanced course, you learn a lot of Node, you learn a lot of full stack JavaScript applications. You're going to be working on a very small part of that. I work with another alumni from here, and he is currently building a greenfield React application, which just means it started as just a VS Code screen, and he's built up an application for the VA. And he graduated the advanced course with me. Although he writes it in React, a lot of just the basic skills help him a lot in problem solving. So you can get by with just doing the I don't want to say basic, the main course. But if you have the time and the money, it couldn't hurt you. But React is huge in Portland, if that helps out a lot. React's massive. If you know React and Vue CLI, you're going to go really far if you enjoy front end.
You said your company was moving away from Python. What is the language or program that you use now to crunch that data?
We use a lot of Java, and then what they're moving to mainly is like Spark. So we do a lot of things with a bunch of different government agencies. So getting data quickly is a way that is needed. We actually just had a talk today about PSA systems, and it's hard even for me to explain. So yeah, we're using a lot of like Spark application stuff.
Would that be called like Apache Spark?
Yeah,
I Googled
exactly.
it here. Cool.
Yeah,
I'll look into that.
Yeah, it just cuts down a lot on runtime. So you don't have the response time of Python.
How much like?
If you could change one thing about your job hunting, what would you have changed about your methodology?
I probably would have taken more personal time, honestly. I was very, very strict on myself of looking for the specific job. I searched for mainly software developer, software engineer jobs. And I'm a data engineer now. So you see where that went. But I would probably take more like personal time and actually spend that time on code or not searching for jobs all the time, because it gets very, very repetitive. And I felt very down when I was job searching. So you want to do things to keep your mental health there. You don't want to always just be getting denied. But you also just have to teach yourself that a denial is a learning point, and you can move on from that.
Yeah, Austin. Along the lines of that, I don't think there's anyone who like worked harder for longer to get a job who graduated from this boot camp. So in terms of like long-term just motivation to keep things going, it was a weird year, right? Like a lot of things were kind of turned upside down, and things could have like happened for different reasons than usual. I tend to think that if you like rolled the dice again, you probably would have gotten a job sooner. It probably wouldn't have taken as long as it did. I think for whatever reason, just took a very long time for you. So, yeah, how did you keep like or I guess maybe what should other people who do work as hard expect, maybe over like how long it would take to get a job?
I think if you work hard, if you have a good work ethic and you're really passionate about what you're doing, I'm very passionate about technology. Although I don't do technology, I like to be as like less nerdy, I guess you could say, outside of my personal life. Like I climb, I'm outdoors, that's what I do. I don't spend my time on computers much, it's just work. But I'm really passionate in tech. And if you're passionate in tech and you really have the drive, you can find a job in a couple of months, especially now with the pandemic wrapping up, hopefully. A lot of jobs are hiring junior. Even in my company, we're switching from senior mid-level to a lot heavy junior. And now all the people that stuck around during the pandemic learned a bunch of skills. And now for my company, at least, they're saying, hey, we need to go teach all these junior people. So let's get a bunch of junior people. And we're going to teach all of them what we know, or we're going to bring them up. And so I feel like a lot of companies right now, I've seen a lot of junior positions opening up. So you guys got a great time. I hit it at a weird time where it was the pandemic just hitting and everybody wanted to go remote. So it took longer for me.
Cool, thanks.
Austin, how long did it take you to find a job from the time you graduated to what you're doing today?
Oh, till what I'm doing today. I graduated in early 2000. I think it was February. I graduated from the boot camp and I got a job. I started my job on the 1st of 2021. So
I think you meant to say 2020, not 2000, because you made it sound like it took you like 21 years to get a job for a second.
2020, yeah. It was just under a year that it took me. I think last
better
time
than
I
2
looked
decades.
at it, I also had just in my denials box, my learning box, I had approximately like 200 to 300 denials. But that's okay. You just have to look, you have to look at that as a learning point, and every one of those I got better. So it helps you.
And I think I'm part of those denials. It's so interesting. I mean, I've gone through a job search myself, and you don't always know what goes on behind the scenes. Like I've gone on a 4-hour panel interview and never heard back, only to find out later that they decided not to have the position. So, I mean, there's a whole number of reasons, and it often is not necessarily because of you. Do you know what I'm saying? Even though we may take it personally. So I think with each interview opportunity, you're just getting closer to a yes, is what kind of like sales.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I work. Is there another question? Yeah, I work a lot, obviously, with data. And a lot of, like June said, a lot of the positions that I see within our company, they might be open for like 200 days, but that's just because they're waiting for a certain budget to hit, and then they'll go ahead and contact you. So if you don't hear back from somebody, it's probably because they're making a position for you, and you just are going to be either first in line, second in line, wherever your application lands. That position will be open once they have the allocation for that.
How many of the jobs that you applied for were okay with or offered a remote position? Were you only looking for remote positions, or like how many did you come across that were or were not?
I was looking for a lot of remote. I did kind of look in person as well. A lot of them are in person until COVID restrictions calm down or whatever. But a lot of people are working remote right now. I don't know how really to answer that one. It's a weird time we're in with it being a pandemic. And so a lot of things are remote, whether you kind of like it or not. In the tech world, the efficiency of a team, it works a lot better remote. You don't have to walk different places in a building. So a lot of places are remote. Is that something that interests you, or or you rather be in person?
Well, I'm thinking remote just personally, just because my wife and I tend to move around a lot, and she wants me to think about becoming an EU citizen. But I just think it's something that's kind of interesting to everyone too, because it is more efficient in a lot of ways. And I didn't know. I've been hearing a lot about how more and more people are working remote, and obviously, hopefully, the pandemic will come to an end. But I was curious if many companies, because I have a few friends that already work as developers, and they both work remote, and they were working remote before the pandemic. So, I just I didn't know if that's something that's going to become more of a thing in the future, or.
I think it's gonna become more of a thing. My company, we have 3 offices, and I know our company is mostly everybody is gonna stay remote. It's kind of the way the industry is going, because you see a lot more now of how the productivity increases. That could be because people have nothing to do but work, but that could also be because there's less meetings. When I say less meetings, it just means less in-person meetings. I'm on calls like all day. I have like 3 hours maybe of my day that isn't spent on a phone call. But you also can learn that in-person meetings you can't work through, and not in-person meetings you can just keep on working.
What would you say that you've encountered for like when you're red flags from employers?
When you're red flagged?
When no, I mean like when you're looking through and you're going through a bunch of like different job postings, what would you see as a red flag that maybe that's not a company you'd want to work for?
Oh, I think being very like the most vague job descriptions are usually not the ones you want to go for. That's kind of a red flag for me. I want to know what I'm about to get into. And then when you do get that first like informational, or not informational, but like recruiter based, I ask a lot of personal questions about if they like the company, if they had it differently, what would they do? Because that shows you, does the company work you really, really hard, or do they have a good work-life balance? When you see a job posting and it's like unlimited days off or unlimited PTO, that's kind of a red flag because that's not a thing. If they're going to give you some PTO, they're not going to give you unlimited PTO. If they are, they're going to work you really, really hard to get that unlimited PTO. So you're going to have the days that you are working, you're going to work all the time. On-call things, I generally find that a red flag for me. I don't want to be on call. I want to work my hours and then I want to be done. So if you like being on call, then that might be something you like. But for me, that's a red flag because that just means they're willing to work you after hours as well. Because tech is normally salary, and so they can really work you as long as you have work to do. You just have to set boundaries with that.
The other, just a piggyback off of Austen as well, is you can go to a company website and do some research on places like Glassdoor, as well as pull up. Sometimes there are mission statements and value statements if you're looking for a right fit culturally to work with a particular organization. Some people have come to me and they have specific passions. They really want a strong valued company. There's also, you can pull up a whole list of what's called B Corp companies. And to be a B Corp, you have to have certain kind of social standards and to get that certification. And so you can certainly look for particular companies that way as well. So it just depends on what's important to you when you're going through your job search.
Yeah. One thing I saw in the chat, Nick pointed out, there's so many companies that will not reach back to you or follow up. And that's a really good point. If you see that, Nick, I'm gonna come right to you with this one. If you see that you apply to a company, you need to send an email back to them because if you don't bug them, they're not going to talk to you. It's just like someone, if you like them, you're probably going to go talk to those people. Like if you want to be part of that group, you want to go talk to them. Same thing with applications. You might not hear back from them. You might interview, and then they say they're going to call back like 2 weeks later or send you an email back. I've got so many of those, and you just have to bug them and say, hey, I was expecting this from you, and why I would like to have an explanation. If you want feedback, you generally have to ask for it.
That to me is kind of like a red flag though. Like I worked for companies in the past before that were like not super professional, and I don't know if that was really worth my time. You know what I mean? So trying to get that first job and like balancing a professional work environment, I don't know, it's kind of tough for your
You
first
find
gig.
it in large companies that they don't get back to you. Smaller companies do. I'm in kind of a medium. I have about 750 employees, so it's kind of the middle ground, and we don't get back to everybody. But if it's a red flag for you, I mean, that you don't want to work there, that's fine.
Isn't there sometimes also like a gatekeeper, like you may be talking to, you know, the internal recruiter at a company who is the kind of person who won't get back to you because they're just kind of like okay at being a recruiter, but those aren't the people you're going to be working with, and like the people who you will be working with at the company maybe never saw your resume in the first place. Or
Yeah, exactly. You'll have, I'm speaking of what I know because this is how we work, but like we have our talent acquisition people, and those people, I talk to them because I work with data, but generally 99% of the people I work with do not talk to them. HR, you might talk to them every once in a while, but those people will be who you actually work with, or even your team. My team is a team of 3 in a company of 700. So you're not going to talk to initially who you talk to in interviews usually. It's going to be someone else.
Often, Nick, they don't even look at your resumes. It's getting through the computer algorithms, and sometimes not even having the right languaging on a resume might just get kicked out. So there's strategies around that and tools that you can use, like jobscan.co can do that. But often it's good to use LinkedIn if you know somebody that maybe has a contact within that organization. You can reach out to that person directly and see if you can kind of bypass that to get your resume to the right person.
Yeah, because if you have to go through like a system, the systems nowadays are not the greatest.
Nobody talks to you anymore. It's crazy.